Could you imagine seeing two Norfolk and Western steam locomotives fired up side by side? Today on the Roundhouse, we're going to find out how this fall you'll get your chance. All aboard!
In days past, the Roundhouse was where the railroad worker united with the steam locomotive, each to prepare for the journey ahead. Today, it's where we examine the history, the industry, the machines, the hobby, and the passion behind railroading. News, interviews, stories, and more. So climb aboard. This is The Roundhouse.
Welcome to The Roundhouse. I'm your host, Nick Ozarek, and this is episode number 83 of our Trains and Railroading podcast, where we're talking about everything in the industry and the hobby. You name it, and we discuss it. Today, we have a very interesting event to talk about that's coming up in the very near future. That's going to be in October of 2019. That is that Norfolk and Western 611 is going to the Strasburg Railroad for over a month's worth of events. We're talking to Steve Barrall, who's the station master of the Strasburg Railroad, about what's going to take place. It sounds exciting. Before we get to that, I want to thank today's sponsor, and that is the Age of Steam Roundhouse. Be sure to include them in your summer vacation plans and visit their website at ageofsteamroundhouse.org to see what events they have coming up. Our guest today to talk about this exciting weekend coming up at the Strasburg Railroad with the 611 visiting is the station master for the Strasburg Railroad. Please welcome to the Roundhouse, Mr. Steve Barrall.
Thank you, Nick.
So good to have you on the show, Steve. I was just realizing how we've talked about Strasburg several times before, but this is your first time actually coming on the show, and what an event you have lined up here. So what led to the creation of this series of events? Yeah,
good question. Certainly the Strasburg Railroad is definitely involved in heritage railroading, and specifically steam railroading and that industry that comes alongside of it. So we have opportunity to rub shoulders with a lot of different people. And so I think the idea certainly of bringing the 611 to Strasburg or allowing it to visit here goes back a few years, just in some side conversations that transpired, with some of our leadership between both organizations, Strasburg Railroad and the Virginia Museum of Transportation. And one thing kind of led to another. There honestly were some discussions over the course of time and some instances when we couldn't quite make things work. But lo and behold, as one individual said to me today, it seemed as though the stars finally aligned and we're able to make this happen. So we're very pleased to be able to be welcoming later this year the 611 to Strasburg Railroad.
Perhaps you can walk us through some of the specific events that people can take part in over the course of over a month.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I think really what we wanted to do, and kudos go out to Brendan Ziegler in particular, who's kind of spearheaded sort of the event side of things on this end. But we wanted to set out and provide people with a lot of different opportunities. And we recognized from the get-go that there are a lot of different interests. Certainly, the 611, has some history in visiting other places and providing other opportunities, be it at Spencer or elsewhere. And so we could glean from them, but we also just wanted to provide opportunities for a number of different people, keeping in mind that they all have slightly different interests and so forth. So initially, we set out to provide 4 distinct weekends of activities for rail fans, families, photographers, and even our regular visitors to enjoy. However, and we might touch on this later, but as the demand for tickets exceeded those initial offerings, of course, we've continued to build opportunities, and so the lines have been a little bit blurred. But essentially, the first weekend, September 27th to the 30th, as well as the Friday that follows that, are really sort of an introduction to this theme of a reunion of steam. And so 611, along with 475, will be pulling excursion trains, so our standard 45-minute ride, and there will be a variety of accommodations that folks can choose from to ride behind 611. In addition to that, there are cab tours as well as whistle blowing, and even some behind-the-scenes tours like our standard shop tour or a hostling tour of 611 as well. So that's kind of the first weekend in a nutshell. The second weekend, I believe that would be the 4th into the 7th, actually, as we expanded one of those dates as well, 4th to the 7th of October. That really is a photographer's extravaganza, so to speak. And so it kicks off the weekend with a banquet that focuses on kind of a tribute, I guess you could say, to 475, 611, and also the photography of O. Winston Link. There will be presentations made by respective individuals. Our own Rick Musser, who recently retired, will provide information about 475's acquisition and the rebuild here at Strasburg Railroad. There will be a presentation on 611 provided by Bud Jeffries. And then Lindsay Alley of the O. Winston Link Museum will provide kind of the keynote address at that banquet. And then the rest of the weekend provides some pretty neat photo session opportunities for photographers with morning and afternoon sessions on Saturday through Monday, and then a very exclusive nighttime O. Winston Link style photo session on Saturday evening. Both 611 and 475 will be kind of strutting their stuff during those photo sessions, with 475 being dressed as the Virginia Creeper 382 for the Sunday and Monday sessions in particular. So we're also pleased to be working with Lero Productions on that weekend. And then where does that bring us? Then Columbus Day, that would be, I believe, October 12th to the 14th, is really what we're calling rail and road transportation evolution. So really just exploring kind of and depicting the evolution of transportation through the first half of the 20th century. Of course, 475 was built in 1906, making her 113 years old this year. 611 was built almost half a century later in 1950, so she represents that pinnacle of steam technology. And along with that, we want to have those two steam locomotives, but also feature a variety of automobiles from that same vintage, so kind of 1950s and earlier. So that'll be that third weekend. And then the last two weekends in October are all in-cab experiences. So you have the at-the-throttle opportunities, as well as the chance to be the fireman, or just to enjoy a roughly half-hour experience in the cab of either 611 or 475. Those opportunities, for the most part, are pretty well sold out at this point. But that's kind of what we have lined up for those series of weekends, all making one big reunion of steam event here at the Strasburg Railroad.
It's amazing how many different types of ways you're celebrating this. Did you expect the tickets to sell out so quickly? By the sounds of it, I'm guessing not.
Well, yeah, not necessarily. Honestly, we certainly hoped and somewhat expected there would be, huge excitement surrounding this event. But no, we didn't expect them to sell so fast or to sell so many tickets so fast. And that said, there are tickets still available. So if there are listeners that are thinking that there's no opportunity to take advantage of here, that's not true. It's just some of the prime spots, particularly photo sessions and the in-cab experiences, a lot of those have been sold with just a few remaining here and there. But we do still have, particularly on some of those weekday options, we have excursion rides, we have shuttle rides, cab tours, all sorts of stuff that is available for people to enjoy. That said, we really want the general public to have the opportunity to see this special locomotive, and we see real value in kind of telling that story of the steam locomotive through this unique reunion of two N&W iron horses. So we have provided those additional opportunities, new dates that were offered, and we'll continue to explore with VMT how we can continue to expand the event or these series of events as best we can.
Every horse needs a stable, especially those made from iron. The Age of Steam Roundhouse is a brand new facility constructed less than a decade ago, housing nearly 24 steam locomotives. The facility features an 18-stall, accurately reconstructed brick roundhouse surrounding a 115-foot turntable, the largest private collection of steam locomotives in the world, and a fully functioning working backshop where skilled staff actively continue to restore and repair steam locomotives. Having visited multiple times, I could say that it's a very different experience from other museums. Now, the Age of Steam Roundhouse is opening its doors to the public. Tours will be offered Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, May through October 2019, of the roundhouse and shop area. Tickets can be purchased in advance, and to see their other upcoming events, follow them on social media and visit their website at ageofsteamroundhouse.org. People are very familiar with Norfolk and Western 611 as a mainline steam locomotive, perhaps seeing it during Norfolk Southern's 21st Century Steam program. What do you think they'll get from experiencing it on a shorter and smaller railroad, such as the Strasburg Railroad? What makes that a different type of experience?
Well, I think we can offer, there's a couple things I would think of initially, but I think we can offer a variety of experiences. Certainly there's one thing to be said just about the locomotive coming this far north. It's been a while since it's been in this particular region, so there's an opportunity there just for people that maybe haven't had the experience to see or ride behind or ride in 611. So we're providing that. The other thing is, the Strasburg Railroad, as short as it is, I suppose you could say it offers some affordability there, though, as well. So we're pleased to be offering, our standard 45-minute excursion rides, but pulled by 611. Certainly, we expect a lot of our own fans will really enjoy that. They're used to and accustomed to our locomotives that we operate routinely, but to have a special visiting locomotive, that's something special as well. But really, I think just the breadth of different opportunities, like I said, the opportunity to hop up in the cab for a cab tour or go behind the scenes for the hostling tour, or blow the whistle, take an excursion ride or a short shuttle ride, all in the same weekend or the same day, if you will, is really what we're hoping to do, and just provide a pretty neat and rare experience for folks, as opposed to just, and I shouldn't say just, but as opposed to maybe a mainline excursion where they might not have some of those other ancillary opportunities. All of this is going on with our regular train operating in the mix there. Actually, uniquely, the very last weekend in October, we'll also be hosting our final Day Out with Thomas event that weekend as well. So just a lot of neat things to be happening here at the Strasburg Railroad. And as you know, Nick, we're passionate about steam, so I think that's where we're able to kind of pull out all the stops, so to speak.
It's nice, too, because you're going to be able to use 611 and its well-known and established history to draw attention to the heritage of one of your own steam locomotives. People are so accustomed, perhaps, to the stable of locomotives that you have at your railroad that they don't even necessarily, at least perhaps the general public doesn't necessarily stop to think about, well, where did that engine come from originally, and what are some of the other locomotives that would have been working alongside in context back in its day. And so to show it along 611 is an interesting, on the one hand, juxtaposition, because you're talking mainline engine, branch line engine, but on the other hand, it's a perfect fit because they were both Norfolk and Western locomotives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of gets at the heart of really what we're hoping to do here, and why we feel these weekends might really be special. We've called it a reunion of steam, and I tend to think of, a lot of us probably having memories of family reunions. And frankly, sometimes I would come away from a big family reunion with kind of mixed feelings. Sometimes you're meeting folks you haven't met in a while, or about Aunt Lucy or something, but only from hearsay, and now you get to meet her or whatever. But family reunions are also interesting because they kind of illustrate the uniqueness of family. Sometimes you hear some old stories that are shared. Sometimes you learn a little bit more about, your fractured family tree, but you come away with maybe a little bit better understanding of who you are as an individual and also just how special family is. And perhaps it seems really corny, but I see this series of events to be kind of similar. And these two locomotives haven't been together for years, and so it really will be a reunion for them. But, I think it's a little bit more than that, because the history of our country, the history of our towns and communities, and even our families to a large extent tend to include the railroads. It's not uncommon here for folks to walk up and say, "Oh, my great-grandfather used to work on the Pennsy," or something like that. And so the railroads were kind of, in my opinion, kind of the internet of the early 20th century, providing connection. And that's how sometimes people visited home, during the holidays, or mail was sent that way, or, goods delivered, what have you. And we really think people can sort of explore that sense of reunion through a fun steam-powered event. And we're looking forward to that. I think it'll be really special.
Because of how large the event is going to be and all the logistics involved, it merits recognizing, your team that you have at the railroad for being able to host an event of this size and giving everybody a good experience, and B, all of the partners that you're working with to have the logistics worked out to bring the locomotive to Pennsylvania in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. We're certainly grateful for all the support that's there, and it's definitely been a team effort to kind of put this together, and will continue to be a team effort as we move closer to September and October. There's a lot to be done yet, that's for sure, but we're very much looking forward to it. And again, as we have opportunity to kind of expand on this event, we'll certainly do so.
So as of recording this in early April of 2019, there are still tickets for quite a few of the events, and you can go to Strasburg.com to see what all is being offered and what weekends the events are going on and what you can enjoy, correct?
That's correct. Yep. So, StrasburgRailroad.com, there's a basic event page there, but then from there you have a jumping off point to the ticketing platform, and everything's pretty well spelled out there, kind of broken into those four themed weekends, as we discussed earlier. But there's tickets available. Certainly, you can call in as well. Our 800 number is available if anybody has questions or needs assistance buying something or figuring out what they want to do. That's all available.
Sounds good. Is there anything else you'd like to add about what you have coming up? It sounds really exciting, and I personally can't wait to see what comes of it.
Yeah, nothing else to add at this point. We certainly we're appreciative for the interest that's there. Again, we're kind of blown away by just how passionate folks have been already, and we're excited along with them. So, keep in touch. We'll definitely be posting on our social media channels and additional information on our website as we get closer to the event. If folks are looking for something that perhaps they didn't have opportunity to purchase, keep checking back every now and then, because there might be other opportunities that will open up. But we're really excited and would encourage people to find a way to be here. It will definitely be a special opportunity in a pretty neat year. So thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Steve. StrasburgRailroad.com is where you can see all that they have to offer, and there are many other events that they have through the year. This is going to be one of their largest, but they have a lot of interesting stuff going on throughout the year. Definitely check that out. Steve, thank you so much for joining us here on the Roundhouse.
Yeah, thank you, Nick.
And now, the question of the day.
Speaking of our sponsor, last time on the Roundhouse, we were talking about the Age of Steam Roundhouse and their impressive collection of locomotives, which led to the question of their locomotives, which is your favorite? A lot of interesting responses. First, from the roundhousepodcast.com, Cameron writes, I'd have to say Grand Trunk Western 6325, because Ohio Central really put on a show with that thing, and I loved watching it on DVD or online. A lot of you actually agreed with Cameron and chose that. Daniel also writes, my favorite steam locomotive is a tie between the Canadian Pacific G5 sisters, 1293 and 1278. Good choice, Daniel. I had a chance to see them in the Roundhouse this past weekend from recording this in April of 2019. And boy, is it so nifty to have two engines from the same class in the same Roundhouse. From Facebook, James Black writes, always number 19. The movie she was in was pretty gruesome as a kid, but the sound of that howling whistle, the rugged but simple design, and the long and varied career she has had stayed with me into adulthood. Being able to see her in real life is on my bucket list. Michael writes, McLeod River 9, and since nobody else has chosen her thus far, I think I should get to take her home to make room for more popular locomotives. Well, that's an interesting way to go about it, Michael, but somehow I don't think it works that way. Your question of the day for this episode is, if you could see two steam locomotives of the same railroad fired up side by side, which ones would you choose? Let me know on the roundhousepodcast.com. Links to social media there. Hey, as you saw, this episode was sponsored, and we do appreciate Age of Steam for that. If you are interested in sponsoring the Roundhouse, visit the roundhousepodcast.com/advertising and find out if advertising on the podcast is right for you or your business. Thank you for listening, and remember, as always, that the Roundhouse is our house.